All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, today the Pac 12 Conference announced their television partnerships for the 2025 college football season. The CW televised games last year for the Pac 12, and this year, CBS and ESPN will also join the CW in televising games for Washington State and Oregon State. Now, one has to ask, is this deal for 2025 a prelude of things to come for the Pac 12? Honestly, I would think so because I don't see the Pac-12 and their conference commissioner Teresa Gold just looking for short-term partners only. I think at the end of the day, clearly they are still working on their long-term media deal, but I think this announcement today is a huge win for the league. Clearly, the Pac-12 still needs at least one more football member for 2026, and getting their media deal done is definitely going to make that easier. Now, if you build it, they will come. And credit to the CW first and foremost, because they're quickly showing that they could be a viable sports network with their coverage, not just of the Pac 12, but also ACC basketball and football, as well as NASCAR's Xfinity Series. But getting back to the Pac 12, at the end of the day, the current landscape of collegiate athletics, especially for football and basketball, especially for football, okay, because football's king, it's all about getting as much exposure for your product, which this deal can help to provide for the new Pac 12. I mean, you've got to have multiple time windows. You also have to have multiple top networks that are going to pick up your programming. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? The Pac 12, is not going to be ESPN's top priority. That's the SEC. They also televise Big 12 games, ACC games. You know what I mean? So it's one of those where still having ESPN at the table for your league helps. And then for CBS, their top priority is the Big Ten, but the CBS shares the Big Ten with NBC and Fox, and they have the CBS Sports Network where they showed Mountain West, they show uh, some American games and Conference US games, USA games and such. But nonetheless, getting CBS into the fold helps the Pac-12 because again, it gives them another avenue. And like I said before, typically now with CBS and the Big Ten, they've got that 3:30 slot, which used to belong to the SEC. If you're CBS, do you want to put something on your main network at noon? Or do you want to put it on CBS Sports Network? Do you want to put something on in the primetime slot? Or maybe it's the CBS Sports Network. Now you have those options if you are Oregon State and Washington State for 2025. And I think it's going to be something going forward with this league. So, again, at the end of the day, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The new Pac 12 is clearly not going to be what the old Pac 12 was. And if you believe it is, you're being really naive. Okay. They still won't be a power conference, but they have a chance to position themselves as the best of the rest. And I think that's going to be very important going forward in the college football playoff landscape, you name it, because now if you bring enough big players to the table, if you're the new Pac 12, you could basically position yourself to almost get that automatic bid from the group of five or group of six, rather, for the college football playoff each and every year. And that's something that's going to be big for your league going forward. Now, of course, we all know San Diego State, Fresno State, Boise State, Utah State, Colorado State, and Gonzaga are joining Washington State and pardon me, joining Washington State and Oregon State in the new Pac 12. And of course, Gonzaga is not a football school. So the Pac 12 still needs one more taker. But nonetheless, we're getting this television deal for 2025 make it a little bit easier to get that last dance partner? I do believe so. I think though you still need to cross the T's and dot the I's for your long-term deal. But I think this definitely helps to make it a little bit easier to cross that bridge. Now, some possibilities, in my opinion, okay, for the Pac-12 to bring in at least one more football member. Clearly, we're going to hear about Memphis. Memphis is still in the American Athletic Conference. We know that the Pac-12 talked to Memphis before. There were issues, I do believe, with the buyouts from in regards to Memphis from the American Athletic Conference and how much that the Pac-12 was going to help. Memphis has since said that they are committed to the American Athletic Conference, but at the end of the day, in this current landscape of collegiate athletics, you really can't believe anything that a school says as far as being committed to a conference. Just saying. Uh, I'm just throwing this out there. Connecticut as a football only member. Okay. It's one of those where we saw Connecticut struggle in the American Athletic Conference. They became an independent, went back to the Big East for all of the sports. I know that UConn has flirted with the Big 12. Brett Yormark, the Big 12's commissioner, tried to lobby for them. And, it was one of those where, uh, everybody else in the Big 12 said thanks, but no thanks. I think for the Pac-12 to bring in Connecticut as a football only member, I think it would be a last ditch effort if everything else failed for the Pac-12 to try to get at least one more school. UNLV, it was looked at maybe UNLV would be in that wave of Mountain West schools coming to the new Pac-12. Didn't work out. I know that the remaining Mountain West schools have signed that grants of rights, but at the end of the day, could that be something that the Pac-12 circles back to? We got to wait and see. Also, Texas State, UTSA, Tulane, and South Florida. I'm looking at it like this. I think out of all of those schools that I just mentioned, the Pac-12 needs to find a way to get two or three of these schools mentioned to join them. And I think once they get their new media deal going forward, I think it's going to make it a little bit easier because if they can go back and show all of these schools that I mentioned that, hey, you're going to get more money based on this media deal than you would in your current conference, I think it's going to make it a little bit easier for somebody to want to take that jump and talk turkey with Teresa Gold and company. And like I said, you really only need one. But I think if the Pac 12 could find a way to get two or three schools and possibly get themselves at 10 football members, that would definitely strengthen their case going forward. And then possibly bringing in St. Mary's for basketball as well. They already brought in Gonzaga, a national power brand when it comes to college basketball. Of course, St. Mary's is right there with the Zags in the West Coast Conference. Could the Gales also join, Gonzaga in the Pac-12? I think it's a possibility, but I don't think it's a priority right now for the Pac-12 just due to the fact that, hey, they've got to get their TV deal done. They've got to get another football member first, and then they could possibly circle back to a St. Mary's. So you look at this and say, hey, what is next for Teresa Gold and the Pac-12? Not to sound like a broken record, but I do believe that this is a prelude for them to get their new media deal. I expected, the CW to be a part of things for the Pac-12 long term, and I stand by that, and I think they will. I said before, I talked about this with Mark Jenkins months ago when him and I talked about this. I said CBS could be a partner at the table due to the fact that, hey, you want to get multiple windows. And CBS, they have their 3:30 slots with the Big Ten, but they probably want another slot. So getting CBS in definitely helps. I also mentioned Turner due to the fact that Turner has lost the NBA package and they've got money to play around with there as well. I'm surprised that ESPN came back in. I really am. But if you can get a big player like an ESPN at the table for your product, I think it's a win. And I think credit to Washington State and Oregon State for sticking to their guns because when the original Pac 12 blew up a couple of years ago, it would have been extremely easy for Washington State and Oregon State to go into a shell and hide. And they fought. And it hasn't been easy. And it's still not going to be easy because, I mean, you look at how Washington State and Oregon State, in multiple sports, okay, have been decimated in the transfer portal since, the original Pac-12 went under. Okay. And you have to you got to understand that. And they're fighting, okay? And they're not going to be what they were, but they're still fighting, and they have scrapped and clawed, and they're going to continue to fight. And you know what? I give them all of the credit in the world. They've got that Pac-12 war chest, at their disposal, and they have to use it wisely. And I think they have been using it wisely. And they went out there, they got the CW for 2024. They got the CW again, clearly for 2025, along with CBS and ESPN. And it's one of those, we know about the battle between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. It's something that, if you're the Pac-12, it was originally agreed upon by former conference commissioner George Kliakoff, and it's something that Oregon State and Washington State didn't want. And of course, that battle is going to go to court. I think it's going to be something where it's going to be settled between the Mountain West and Pac-12. Each conference, I don't think, gets completely what they want, but they will find some middle ground compromise, and everybody goes their separate ways. But nonetheless, this was a big step for the Pac 12. I do think a bigger announcement is coming soon as far as them getting their long term deal. And at this point, one would have to imagine that CBS and ESPN would be a part of that as well. Because again, I don't see you announcing something just for 2025 and you're not looking at the bigger picture. I think at this point, like I said, get some more of those schools to come on board with you. And if you're the Pac 12, and unfortunately, it's the landscape of collegiate athletics, it's all about survival now. I think you have to try to strengthen yourself as the best non power conference that you can possibly be. But again, big step for the Pac 12, and let's see what's next as they look to get that long term media deal done. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each of you for checking it out. And if you liked what you heard and saw, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. It is greatly appreciated. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. As like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. And also, it goes the same for Instagram, as I'm at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. If you follow me, I'll definitely give you that follow back. Also, you can check us out on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. As far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. And as always, fine folks, just want to take this time out once again to thank each and every one of you for checking us out here. And as always, I'm William Martin. I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.